All electrical work must be done by a qualified electrician. Only a qualified electrician using the personal protective equipment and following the procedures recommended in NFPA 70E should ever attempt service or repair of or near an energized area or component of the machine. Whenever maintenance is performed while the equipment is electrically energized, there is a potential electric arc flash hazard. Refer to NFPA 70E for the personal protective equipment required when working with electrically energized components. Pneumatic and hydraulic components may move unexpectedly if not de-energized. Physically restrain any components capable of movement when working on or near those components. Note: the terms traveling end and carriage end are used interchangeably in the Cyber and Cyber AT saw documentation. The majority of Cyber and Cyber AT saws have the 9030 PLC. Because of this, the first part of the Step 2 video pertains to the 9030 PLC. Other, newer series will be addressed later in the video. The difference between the older 9030 PLC and the newer RX3i is the top rack and some of the components contained in the stationary end of the saw. The power supplies and the lights on the other three racks are the same. In the 9030 portion of the video, there are 6 quick checks to use to discover the cause of the power interrupt error message in Step 2. In the RX3i portion of the video, quick checks number 2 and 3 are different, but quick checks 1, 4, 5, and 6 are the same for both the RX3i and the 9030. So be sure to view the entire video. After completing Step 1, we know we do not have 120 volts on wires labeled 2S or 2T, which means that either CR1 or CR2 is not engaged. Follow these quick checks to locate the problem. Check number 1. With both the left-hand doors on the electrical panels on the stationary and traveling end open and the power on, look at the PLC power supplies in both racks on both ends. In both electrical panels, 3 lights should be on: Power, OK, and Run. If there are no lights on, check to see if the CB4 circuit breaker for the stationary end or the CB3 circuit breaker for the traveling end are tripped. If either one is tripped, reset the circuit breaker. If it trips again, go to Step 3. If it does not trip, the saw is ready to be placed back into production. Check number 2. If one of the power supplies does not have any lights on, check for 120 volts on the power supply. If you have 120 volts, then replace the power supply. Check number 3. If the power and OK lights are on and the run light is not, then move to the top PLC rack on the stationary end. You will see a key that is in the CPU next to the power supply. Cycle the key twice by quickly moving it from off to on, off to on. If the run light comes on, the saw is ready to be placed back into production. Check number 4. If the run light is lit on the stationary end power supplies, then it should be lit on the traveling end power supplies. If it is not, check the cable that connects the PLCs of the stationary end to the traveling end PLCs. The cable runs through the cat track. Check it for tears, bulging spots, or worn spots. If it looks okay, then ohm the cable out, which connects to the bottom PLC rack on the stationary end on the far right-hand side of the rack to the top rack on the traveling end of the far right-hand side. If you find any tears, bulges, or other problems, replace cable. Check number 5. If all 3 lights are on all the power supplies at both ends, then, on the stationary end, locate the bottom PLC rack. In slot number 4 is the relay output module that turns on CR1. On the traveling end, locate the bottom PLC rack. In slot number 2 is the relay output module that turns on CR2. On both modules, the number 5 LED in the B row of numbers should be lit on both the stationary and traveling ends. The output wire numbers that connects from the relay output modules to CR1 on the stationary end is Q237, and the similar wire on the traveling end, it is Q253. If both the number 5 LEDs are on, check both of the output wire numbers for 120 volts at CR1 and CR2 relays. Wire number X2 is the neutral wire. If you have 120 volts on both output wire numbers and either CR1 or CR2 is not engaged, then replace the one that is not engaged. Check number 6. If you do not have 120 volts on one of the output wire numbers at CR1 or CR2, Then check the output wire number on the relay output module itself. If you do not have 120 volts, then on the relay output module, check wire number labeled 1S on the stationary end and wire labeled number 1T on the traveling end. If you have 120 volts on that wire number on the relay output module and not on the Q output wire number for either CR1 or CR2, then replace the bad module. Control power interrupt, Step 2 for the RX3i series PLC. Quick check number 2 is if the RX3i power supply does not have any lights on. First, open the door on the power supply and make sure the on-off switch is in the on position. If it is in the on position, then check for 120 volts. If you have 120 volts, then replace the power supply. If the power line is on with other lights lit on the power supply, then contact the Machinery Customer Service Department at 1-800-523-3380. Quick check number 3 is if the run light is off on the CPU. Take the following steps. Open the door on the CPU and move the bottom switch from Run Enable to the Stop Disable position. Then remove the CPU energy pack wire on the bottom of the CPU. Turn the power supply switch to the off position and let the power drain off, approximately 10 seconds. Turn on the power supply switch and wait for the power light at the top of it to go solid before the next step, approximately 5 seconds. Move the bottom switch on the CPU from the Stop Disable position to the Run Enable position and listen for CR1 relay to engage and make sure it stays engaged. If the run light stays on, then reconnect the cable from the CPU energy pack to the bottom of the CPU. If the run light does not stay on, leave the cable off and repeat the process. If it fails after the second time, contact the Machinery Customer Service Department at 1-800-523-3380.